Hello everyone, welcome to Tam's Classy Creations, the channel where we break down projects so even a beginner can do them. Today, we're going to break down this project bag into 5 easy steps so that you'll be able to make it any size and without a pattern. So, step 1 is the back, and this is your quilted part. This is your base of the bag. Step 2 would be your zipper, which this is an easy install with material. Step 3 is the vinyl. Step 4 is your bottom panel, and we'll talk more about that later. Step 5 is your handle and binding. So let's get started. Step 1 is deciding how big you want your bag. Now this one measures about 12.5 inch. Whatever size you decide to do, cut your material that you want a couple inches bigger. So on this one we would have cut about a 14-inch square top and bottom, and also your foam or batting. Now I use foam for mine. I just think it gives the bag so much more stability. You know, this is empty, it doesn't even have things in it yet, and that's my preference, but you can do batting too. So here we have, mine is going to be about a 9-inch bag. So I have cut my top, cut my foam batting, and my bottom. Now on the sample I had, I'm going to show you how I get those lines. It's actually a 2.5-inch square, and I put it on the 45 diagonal. I use this a lot. Now you would probably want to use your walking foot. That works a little bit better than a regular stitch, but you can do it however you want. I have 2 things I mark my quilts with. I use this Clover chalk pen, which I love, makes a great mark, and I also use a Friction pen. Some people don't like this, it irons off. They say it comes back, but you can use whatever you want. Now, if I was going to mark the back, I would use the Clover chalk. I'm going to do the front, and we're going to mark it how I did mine. I'm going to look for the 45 on my ruler, and that is right here on this ruler. I'm going to lay that horizontal on my fabric, and I'm going to mark these lines. This ruler is a 2.5-inch ruler, so it's perfect for this project. So I'm just going to make a couple more marks here. And like I said, this one's only going to be a 9. It's going to be a much smaller bag, 9.5-inch square, I believe. And so we have some of the marks, and all we're going to do is stitch, and like I said, a walking foot or an even feed foot will work best. We're just going to stitch these lines. Now before we move on, we're going to do the other lines. Now you're just going to find your horizontal lines on your ruler, and you're going to lay them and try to get them right across from the lines you drew. We're going to see if we have it level. So we do, let's see here. Let me get one here. Okay, and we're going to draw a few lines going this way. So we have one more to do on this side. I don't think we have room here. Well, we might attach it there. Okay, let's make 2 more lines. And now we need to take this to our machine and stitch all these lines. Then we are going to cut it down to the size of our project bag. I chose 9.5 because I have a square ruler. It makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to do this off camera, and I'll be back with my finished piece. Here's my finished piece, and I've cut it down to 9.5 inches, and this is the base of our bag, and we're ready to move on to step 2. Okay, step 2 is the zipper install. So remember, your zipper has to be wider than your bag. And I cut 2 strips 1.5 inches. So this is going to be one of the easiest zippers you'll ever do. All we're going to do is line this edge of the material fabric side down against this zipper, and all we're going to do is stitch 1/4 inch all the way down. Now we're going to take it to the other side. Once we do that, we are going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to stitch that 1/4 inch all the way down, and I'll meet you back here after I sew that. Okay, here's where I stitched the 1/4 inch all the way down, and you can kind of finger press it down on both sides. And what you want to do is you want to top stitch that now. So we're going to top stitch it off camera, and I'll meet you back here. Now we have our zipper installed, we have our top stitching done. The next step is going to be we need this 9.5 inches long. So I've already done this. I make a mark here across, and then I make another mark at the 9.5. So we will eventually, not yet, we will eventually be cutting it. Now I've already went ahead and done the next step. Outside or inside of that line, and I've done it in white so you can see it, I've stitched across the zipper end. Okay, so we want to do that. You don't have to use white, but then technically your zipper pull would be up here. So you want to bring it down to where the 9.5 inch mark is, the 9.5 inch wide. You want to bring it down before you make this stitch, and all you're doing is stitching on this side of the line. Now we're not ready to cut it yet, but soon we're going to be cutting this to 9.5 inches. So we're going to move on to the next step. Step 3 is the vinyl. Now I brought my backing back in, and see how my lines line up to that? But depending on the size of your bag, you want to know how much. We want to save some room for the bottom panel. So let's look and see. We want to go, we're going to have 1/4 inch. We're going to sew the vinyl on with 1/4 inch, just like we did on the zipper. So if I measure this here, I think this is a good size for the bottom. Now, you know, we got to eliminate the 1/4 inch seam here, so it'll be about this size. How about if we cut the vinyl around 4 inches, and then we'll have room for the bottom. So we're going to cut it wider than the bag, and we're going to cut it a little wider than, we'll be able to cut that down. We're going to cut it a little bit wider, but we need at least 4 inches. So that's what we're done. That's what I have done. So I've cut the vinyl. I've left the backing on it so that you can see the vinyl, and it's wider than those marks. So I'm going to sew this on with 1/4 inch. Actually, I want the zipper to go this way. I like the zippers opening that way better. So I'm going to sew this on with 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to fold it down and kind of finger press it, and then we're going to make some cuts. So I'm going to do that off camera. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, now the time has come that we need to square this up to the backing. There's some ways you can do it. You can measure, but I like to just flip it over, and let's see here, let's get it straight, and we're going to just line it up with our backing, and we are just gonna stitch it. Didn't get this. Okay. Oh, we got a little bit on the backing. Okay, that's good. Now, oh, that sticks to you, the vinyl. So much static. Okay, let's line it up on the other side. And sometimes I do put a little clip on here to hold it. I didn't do that this time. Okay, we are going to line it up, and this is still sticking to me. Okay, so let's make this cut. And like I said, you can line it up with your ruler, you can do whatever you want, but I like to do it this way. So now, that's what we have, not much to finish. So we're gonna move on to step 4. Okay, we're ready to start step 4, the bottom panel. And for this bottom panel, I just sewed 2.5-inch strips together. And the reason I like to cut down the vinyl and the zipper at this point, because I do embroider, I would like to center it. So it gives me something to center so my sides won't be as wide. That's why I like to cut it down before I finish. So I'm gonna go to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch this down with 1/4 inch. Then I'm going to, because if I stitch it down and I bring it down, now we're going to cut quite a bit off, but if I bring it down, the other side of the bag has all that on it. So what I'm going to do, I get a piece of muslin or something. This just makes your bag a little bit nicer. I actually stitch that on the other side. So I stitched the 3 together. The vinyl's in the middle. I want this to be on the top so I can bring it down, and I'm going to bring down the white material so that the backing is fine, so that if kids use this or things won't get caught. I'm also going to give you a couple more samples of some other things. If you remember in the original sample, I just had material and I embroidered a name. You could do something like this. Now this one I haven't finished because I haven't top stitched the binding on yet, but look at here, I did flying geese. And also I made a bag that wasn't square, it's rectangle. So then I have another bag that I just did with scraps, and it would be a little bigger. It's a little closer to being square. I just put pieces together around 2 inch. Now this was all scrap I had. If you look at my binding, you can see it's all scrap, it's all different. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine and meet you back here. I stitched off camera the bottom panel and the 1/4 inch, and I stitched this white to the back. So now you cannot iron with this vinyl, but you can finger press it really good. And I'm gonna turn it over and finger press the white too. Yeah, it lays fine. Okay, so one of 2 ways. Now we need to cut this down to the size. I usually go and get my ruler for this, but you could, again, just turn it over and cut it. But I do like the ruler. So I'm gonna get the ruler and we'll cut that down. Now I have my 9.5 inch ruler, square ruler, so I'm gonna line this up and I'm gonna cut this off. Okay, let's see here. Okay, whoop, got another spot here. That was double material, and I'm at those hard angles. So now we have it all squared up to fit the top. So I will join you back here with the top. Okay, now let's line this up. Oh, and that fits really good. I am going to pull the lining, the backing off of here now. It does, remember, it's just so staticky. There. So we can pull that, and I'll have to, want to see what it looks like without it. Let's get this off and get this off. And one more piece here. Okay, what we're going to do now, this looks nice. Now you can see the trucks through it. Okay, what we want to do is that we want to complete step 4, and to complete step 4, we're going to stitch just 1/8 of an inch all around the bag, and it's just to get it to stick to the back so that we can put a binding and a handle. So we'll do that off camera. Now we're moving into step 5. That is the handle and the binding. So the handle is approximately 12 inches long, and I cut mine about 3.5 inches wide. So then you'll fold it, press it, then you'll open it up, and you'll fold these to the fold line, just like that, and then you'll press it. I think it gives it extra body with all the material. Then you're going to stitch an 1/8 of an inch seam on this side and then on this side. Here's one finished, and I have both of the top stitching. So we're going to set that aside a minute, and I'm going to talk about the binding. Now the binding, I'll have a video on some different kinds of binding, but basically we're going to cut this 2 1/4 to 2 1/2. Some people like the 2 1/2, some people like 2 1/4. I usually use 2 1/4, but when I'm going over the foam, I did like these 2 1/2. So we're going to cut that, get them ready, and then we're going to meet you back here, and we're going to put on the handle and the binding to our bag. Okay, I have stitched this 1/8 of an inch all around. I did lengthen my stitch length because this is just basting, and I think I stitched it at a 3.5 length. So it's just basted on so that everything stays together, so now that we can finish up the project. And we're on step 5. So what I have done, I have put a mark at the center of the bag, and about 2 inches each way we're going to put the handle on. So I'm gonna just stitch it. Here's my mark, and it's on the 2 inch. Then I'm gonna do, and this works out almost any size unless it'd be really small. I did the 2 inch away from the center on my other bag, and it just, you know, it's gonna work good. So I will then again go stitch that down 1/8 of an inch. Now it's time, after that is done, it's time to put on our binding. Now I told you I will have a video on binding later. There's all kinds of ways. So we would start it down here. Now I do start the binding on the back, and then I bring it up forward, and we're going to top stitch it. So I would start here, leave some room so you can attach the other side. You're going to come to the end, you're going to go off 1/4 inch, go off, you're going to bring it here, you're going to go up this edge, you're going to lay your handle down so you don't get it into the binding. You're going to do this again, go off, you're going to come here all the way around, and when that is done, then you bring your binding to the front, and you're going to cover that. You're going to have a 1/4 inch stitch here, and then you're just going to cover that, and you're going to top stitch your binding down. So if you don't know how to do the bindings, wait for a future video. I'll show you a little bit more about bindings. Then your bag will be finished. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please comment below. I will be sure to answer each one. Please subscribe and give it a big thumbs up. Also, if you hit the notification bell, that way you will be notified when I release a new video. I have a lot of fun upcoming projects, so keep an eye out for them. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.